All right, guys, on to our 8.3b lesson. We're going to move on with our special right triangles, and we're now going to look at 30, 60, 90s. We are now going to be looking also, instead of a square like we did with 45, 45, 90, now we're looking at an equilateral triangle, which we remember from equilateral triangle, all sides and all angles are congruent, which means in this case, all angle measurements of an equilateral triangle, as we discussed last semester, are 60 degrees, because this is our 180 degrees divided by 3. Okay? The height of a triangle, we have discussed numerous times, is what we call that altitude. We're going to need that altitude in here. This altitude is also going to be in an equilateral triangle. It's also going to be the median. Sounds familiar. Angle bisector. Oops, sounds familiar again. And remember your upside down T, perpendicular bisector. Now we're going to use Pythagorean theorem like we did with 45, 45, 90 to find the length of the altitude. Problem is we don't have a 90-degree angle to make your 45, 45, 90. So that's why in this triangle here, we're going to go ahead and draw in our altitude. Ooh, not very straight, Miss Collins. It's all right. So here with our altitude, remember it's going to be a median, creating a midpoint down here. So B to that midpoint and C to that midpoint are going to be congruent. Okay? And being our angle bisector, that's going to create two congruent angles up here. So let's talk about that real quick. Over here, all three angles were 60 degrees. Now that we've cut that angle in half, we now have a 30-degree angle up here. Now, being our perpendicular bisector is where that perpendicular, that 90-degree comes in. So now we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle with half of that equilateral triangle. So let's talk about this A, B, and C stuff going on, right? If we're taking a look at just one of these two triangles here, we know that across from our 90-degree angle is always going to be C. Okay? Well, also keep in mind, let's look at from, we use this side over here, we're going to learn later, across from our smallest angle is going to be A. If we take a look at the entire length of BC, if B to that midpoint is A, the midpoint to the C is also going to be A, meaning the entire length of the whole side is 2 A's. Well, that would be the same over here. And over here for A segment AC and AB. Well, segment AB is already C, so we can now conclude that AC is going to be equal to 2 A's. Okay? So then we can use this to figure out what B is going to be, using our Pythagorean theorem. So we'll have our C squared, we'll go through this real quickly, equals A squared plus B squared. Follow with me. Right now, what we have as C is going to be 2A. So we have that 2A in parentheses with the squared on the outside, equal to A squared, because we don't know anything there, plus B squared. Square this up over here. Just like distribution, we've got to distribute that square to the 2, giving us 4, and to the A, giving us 4A squared, equals A squared plus B squared. We need to get B by itself because that's what we're trying to get. It's that altitude. Okay? So in order to do this, we need to subtract that A squared. And we already have 4 A squareds on the left, so we're going to subtract 1. These are gone. So we have a B squared. I have 4 A squares. I take 1 away. I've got 3 A squares. Now we need to square root to get rid of the exponent for B. So I will square root the other side. Breaking this down, I want you to see what's happening on the left. Right? We just have B. Over here, this is saying the square root of 3 times the square root of A squared. We've already learned that the radicals cancel out the exponents. So what I have is B. Over here, I have an A. Now we're going to switch these around, so we're going to wind up with A square root of 3 for B. Okay? So over here, we'll have A square root of 3. And you'll see this all in effect as we go through each problem. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, let's take a look at this. The hypotenuse is twice as long as the shorter leg. If we look at the shorter leg up here is A, the hypotenuse is 2 times that size. The longer leg is the square root of 3 times as long as the shorter leg. So over here we saw shorter leg was A, so A times the square root of 3. So when it all comes down to the simple matters of it, across from your 30-degree angle is always, across the smallest angle is always your smallest side. So that's going to be that shorter leg of A. Across your 60-degree angle, you're going to have your other leg, which we said was A square root of 3. Across from your 90-degree angle, your hypotenuse will always be 2A. So the radical is no longer on the hypotenuse. Okay? But how you can tell this was going to be a square root of 3 instead of the square root of 2 is we're dealing with the 30, 60, 90 triangle. All are multiples of 3. So remember to use the square root of 3 for this guy. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the first couple so we get comfortable with this. All right? First thing we'll start off with is cross. We have a 60 over here. We know this is 30. Cross from my 30 is going to be A. Across from my, this is the order I like to go, and across from my 90, my hypotenuse is going to be 2A. And then lastly, across from my 60 is going to be that radical, A square root of 3. So we're going to find LM and we're going to find MN. I'm going to start with LN. I'm sorry, we're going to start with LN because that's information that we're given, so we can set these equal to each other so we can find out what A is. So 2A is equal to 14. Simply divide by 2. We're going to find out that A is 7. Okay, so there's our first side, well, I guess the second one listed, MN. All right, so there's one of our answers. Now that we have A, we could go ahead and take a look at the A square root of 3. And all this is going to do is, like we saw with our 45, 45, 90, A is 7. All we're going to do is substitute in that 7. So it would be 7 square root of 3. Okay, so that A is a whole number. You just throw it in front of the square root of 3 to get your longer leg. Next, we'll take a look at what happens with these, we got throwing some radicals here, okay? Here's my 60 degree. I know this is my 30. Telling me that across my 30 degree is going to be A. Across from my 90 is 2A. Always label these 3, please. Crossing your 60 is your A square root of 3. So here we have that A is equal to, we can put it here, A is equal to 2 square root of 5. So let's go find 2A first. So here we just had 2. We substitute A in with that 2 square root of 5. Okay, multiply the 2's together, we get 4, and we leave that square root of 5 alone. There's our hypotenuse. Okay, we just have to double whatever we got, double that 2. Now to find your A square root of 3, let's take a look at this guy. Again, we're going to substitute in 2 square root of 5 for A. So here's your 2 square root of 5 times the square root of 3. Well, all we have to do here is don't have anything to do with the 2. Then the square root of 5 times the square root of 3 will give you the square root of 15. That's all you have to do on that one. Okay? Next, let's take a look at the second page, where you're going to do a little bit on your own, but let's start off here. We're going to go ahead and get our labels in here. I've got my 60 degree, got my 30 degree up here. Across my 30 is A, across from my 90, 2A, across from the 60 is A square root of 3. So what do we have here? Which one has a number on it? The A square root of 3. So let's go figure this out. Let's go find A. If we have A square root of 3 is equal to 8, we remember for 45, 45, 90, we need to divide both sides by that radical. So when we divide by the square root of 3, both sides, those cancel, and we're left with A equals 8 over square root of 3. Can't have that radical in the bottom. So we could take this and shove it and leave it. We have that 8, shove that square root of 3 up to the top, and leave that 3 on bottom by itself without the radical. And we're done. We can't simplify 8 over 3. So this is what A is going to equal. So then we find 2A. All we have to do is substitute in. We have that 2A, so we have 2 times that 8 square root of 3 over 3. With multiplying here, we have 2. We can use this as a fraction to make it a little bit easier to see. Straight across. 2 times that 8 will give me 16. Can't do anything with the square root of 3. And 1 times 3 gives me 3. We cannot simplify 16 over 3, so we're done. All right? So then here on the next one, I'm just going to write a little bit, and you're going to finish the rest of that. And you're also going to complete E and F. All you need to do is go back and look at other problems that I did on this on the video and use that as a reference guide here. Okay, remember here we have 30 degrees. So over here I have A. Across from my 90, I have 2A. So if 2A equals 4 square root of 3. And across my 90, I have A square root of 3. So I want you to go ahead and find A, and I want you to find A square root of 3. And we'll check in class, and then I want you to, again, use previous problems to use these as a reference to help you with these, because we do have, I already worked out problems just like these. All right? Last thing at the bottom here. We have the length of one side of an equilateral triangle is 11 centimeters. So here, if we draw an equilateral triangle, we know all 3 sides are the same. So here we've got 11. We want to know the height of the altitude. Okay, so that's going to be this guy right here. Remember that your altitude is going to be that A square root of 3. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and here, remember this is our 90 degree, here's our 60 degree, here's our 30. I'm going to go ahead and draw this triangle to the side, just so we can see it by itself. Okay, our 90 degree here, 60 and 30. Over here we have 11. So we're going to find our altitude. Remember here that we have across the 30 is A. Across the 90 is 2A, and across the 60 is A square root of 3. I'm going to walk through this one simply because I want you guys to see how we don't want to end up with a decimal. If we start off with, let's just do it this way. We've got 2A is going to equal 11. You guys can tell I'm getting tired here, huh? We're going to divide both sides by that 2, so these cancel. What we're going to do is we're going to leave A as 11 over 2. All right? So then when I go to find my altitude, I have my A square root of 3. We're going to substitute in for A as that 11 over 2 times the square root of 3. Again, we can look at this. We have a fraction, 11 over 2. Let's turn square root of 3 into a fraction, put it over 1. Multiply straight across. Well, here, we just leave it as 11 square root of 3. 2 times 1 gives us 2, and we're already simplified. We're not going to turn that 11 over 2 into 5.5. We're going to leave it right there. Okay, so there's our altitude. Go ahead and finish the rest of the problems on your own so that you're ready to present your answers in class.